welcome my brothers and sisters to the Richard James Show on 17104, The Voice.
Just a closer walk with thee. Grant me, Jesus, if you please. Hear me walking close to thee. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Greetings and salutations, and welcome once again to the Richard James Show. God has blessed us with another day and another moment when we can bring to you the meaningful truth. And that's what we're about. We're about the truth and lifting up the truth and nothing but the truth. We have given you some information on several programs on what we call reparations. And we said to you that reparations, or a check in our hip pocket for past injustices, would not correct the current and present injustices. Because we as a people have endured in the face of evil, in the face of bigotry, in the face of contempt, continued injustice. And those institutions that have been put in place, supposedly to help guide and protect us and to render justice unto all people, are sometimes our greatest enemy. But we have a armed guard in every community. Unfortunately, America suffers from a high rate of crime, particularly in our major cities throughout the country. A very high rate of crime. So we need somebody somehow to protect us against ourselves. My son-in-law, wonderful young man, was working in the Harrisburg urban area. He does his own, but he does construction and remodeling, that kind of stuff. And near where he was working, there was a drive-by shooting. Folks just drive by for no reason at all. In fact, it wasn't anybody there outdoors. They just shooting up the neighborhood. And so when some people say to me, well, we don't need a police force, that we should defund the police, I said, somebody need to defund your brain. That is the most ridiculous thing, and I can't stand it every time I think about it. What we need to do is take a look at investment. Look at also, and take a look at the program itself. Take a look at how we structure our police force. What is it that a police officer needs? What does that individual need? And what does the organization need? Hear what I'm saying? For example, if you have police officers that have associate degrees and have a greater level of education, there are some things that they're able to do that a police officer does not have that is able to do. In the military, we offer our veterans free tuition. Why can't we do that with the police officer? Also, if you have a job with an individual that has to interact with other people, then interacting is what you call human behavior. So you want to screen individuals to make sure that they do not have human behavior problems. If they are sick, if they, in a sense, and they have a tendency toward violence and attacking other people, then you don't want to put a gun on their hip or a billy club in their hand and tell them to go for it. And if this person is a bigot from the beginning, and he see an African-American male, his bigotry to believe, say, if this is an African-American male, then he's about to commit violence. He cannot be trusted. He is indeed a criminal, so I'm gonna whip the devil out of him. Talk to me. You can't say I'm lying because it happens almost every day in the continental United States. Is it always necessary for a police officer and community to carry a weapon of destruction on his hip? Is that possible? I think it has to be evaluated. I'm not saying no. I'm not saying yes. I'm saying that everything needs to be evaluated in our community. And the policing and the protection of all people. I want to make sure that the elderly are protected. I want to make sure that the babies are protected and some fool can't ram into a schoolyard and start killing people. I want to make sure that my teachers are protected. And on Sunday morning, whether I'm at a synagogue, whether I'm at a mosque, or whether I'm at a Christian church, I don't want some fool coming in and killing and shooting up the church, killing and shooting up the school, killing and shooting up the people. And you can't do that with just goodwill. You have to have a plan to deal with the racism that's in this country. And so what we talk about modifying the police force, we're talking about giving them the necessary tools to do the job. And we want to put the resources that are needed there to help them to do the job. You know what I'm saying? The monetary resources to help them to do the job. Years and years and years ago, the Pennsylvania State Police Department had the first African-American commissioner of the state police, a very, very close, wonderful friend of mine by the name of Ron Sharp. There were others. Virginia Smith, the first high-ranking female major officers in Pennsylvania State Police. Ben Brooks, high-ranking people. There are some very, very good people who chose this line of work. Very good people. And you got to treat them like they're human beings. And you have to listen to them. There are organizations, the Guardians, the executives, a Black organization who are committed to freedom, justice, and equality. On a national scale, I think the Fraternal Order Police need to listen to some of their own. They know what to do. They have an idea of what a plan should be. You get the experts to deal with the plan. Get your expert psychiatrists and psychologists to deal with the behavioral problems that police have to deal with. These issues are very important. We got a couple of videos that we were able to get up off of YouTube and major networks have put together and discussing this whole issue of police modification. And we're going to start out with a small video, and then we're going to go to a large one. President Biden issued an executive order on the modification of police and dealing with the whole issue of police modification, justice, equal opportunity, and equality, and dealing with also an issue of some police brutality in some instances. But okay, we're gonna put on the first one. Take a look at it.
With you, take a listen to this soundbite from Vice President Kamala Harris as she's talking about what else can be done when it comes to police reform. Take a listen.
We also know this executive order is no substitute for legislation. nor does it accomplish everything we know must be done. The President and I call on the United States Senate to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, and once again, we vow that we will do everything in our power to protect public safety, to support law enforcement, and to address this issue of racial injustice wherever it exists.
I guess my question is, Hans, is this an issue that can be legislated? Can it be corrected with new rules and regulations? And if so, does this executive order go far enough?
So, hi, Tiffany. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the question. And first, I want to say to the Floyd family, 2 years later, I still can't imagine what that loss is like, that public loss, and my heart still goes out to them. And to your question, you know, this is a complicated problem with multiple solutions. We can't get very far without some federal action and ultimately some state action and ultimately also some hyper-local action. So all of it needs to happen. I do think that there's a significant starting point when we do a better job at the federal level to really set the tone, set some enticements via funding to really bring us to where we need to be. But the philosophical changes that need to happen also need to be present, and the general structures that exist currently also need to be completely reimagined. So can we totally legislate it away? Probably not at the federal level, but that's who needs to lead, set the tone, have states follow, have municipalities follow, and really help us understand how we can get to a different system that's more responsive to what communities have been calling for 2 years and beyond.
Brittany, I want to play a disturbing video. I want to warn our viewers this is disturbing. It's footage of a chase between a police officer and someone who was on a dirt bike, and he extended his taser, and you'll see what happens. Take a look.
Surveillance video showing 26-year-old Gian Barreto covered in flames. His attorneys, who provided the video from Wawa to NBC, say he was cooked alive. Osceola County Sheriff Marco Lopez saying the February 27th incident started when 911 callers reported 2 men were driving dirt bikes aggressively and flashing guns at other drivers. A law enforcement helicopter followed, and it was at the Wawa gas station that deputies caught up with Barreto, whose bike they say matched the description of one of the suspects.
I look at this, Brittany, and I say, I don't know an executive order or legislation that can address that level of abuse. This man was burned, cooked alive, essentially, like you heard. What's your thought? Is this an issue that can be legislated?
You know, I have to agree with you, Tiffany, that there are some things that clearly cannot be legislated. There are things that cannot be reformed. And I think we have to really reckon with the kind of hero worship we've engaged in around policing in America. I think, sadly, Uvalde is a terrible and tragic example of just how not incompetent, but problematic the entire institution is. As I said before break, if the police kill, tase, and maim unarmed people because they feared for their lives, and they won't stop armed people from slaughtering children, then clearly the institution itself is not sound. Uvalde provides 40% of their municipal budget to policing, and I'm very sure that being tackled and handcuffed while you're trying to go in and rescue your own children is not what the residents of that town paid for. It's certainly not what taxpayers across the country think they're paying for. Police have actually spent many years and a lot of money actually litigating the fact that they do not have to endanger their lives if they don't want to, which is fine. That's a challenging thing to ask of anybody. But what that means is that we should stop telling people that's what they do. We should stop leading with this serve and protect idea, because that's frankly not often how they function. We have to recognize that there is a culture in media and in television and in film that has created this incontrovertible narrative that police are perfect and they are heroes, and everything they do is done with authority that should be respected without question, instead of the fact that we can look at other countries and recognize that at the very least disarming police, demilitarizing police, but really thinking creatively about how we abolish policing as we know it and really get to the meat of public safety. That's what our communities deserve. It's not just about what we take away when we talk about abolition. It's about what we create in terms of creating healthy communities and healthy solutions. But the institution of policing has far too long convinced us that they are here to serve and protect us, when so often what they're always doing is actually enforcing the will of the state, and they're terrorizing often Black and brown people in order to do that.
like we just saw on that video, that disturbing video. Hans, before we go, because I know this is something that you've worked intimately on, there was some reporting that Biden's EO leaked, his executive order leaked, and law enforcement was not happy with some of the things. They didn't like draft references to systemic racism. They didn't like that federal grant money police departments receive would be required to submit records and consult it when they're hiring new officers. I mean, we're asking the problem to solve the problem.
That's correct.
Is that, when I heard that, I thought, who gives sugar, honey, iced tea if law enforcement was offended at what this White House put in the executive order? Your thoughts?
So I think it's important to get all perspectives. But with the problem that I think you're highlighting very appropriately is whose perspective is centered. Whose perspective are we thinking needs to be the final decision maker that we use as the ultimate scale of what is right and wrong in any action? And what's notably missing is the community members of the community that know all too well the impact of law enforcement on their lives, on Black communities, and asking them, what about this executive order offends you or pleases you, and leading with those answers. And while also perhaps in understanding or at least listening to law enforcement so we have those perspectives, but the idea that those folks are the ones that are helping to drive an order or that we need to keep them happy or complacent is certainly a problem. And I think that over the last 2 years, what we've learned is that the communities have the power, they have the voice, they have the intelligence. We have to listen to them and center their voice in all of our actions downstream.
All right. All right. Some of the things that were stated were personal opinions, some extremely exaggerated, and some just really off the mark. I don't agree with everything that they say. I just absolutely don't, because some of what they say is not true. There are movies, videos that expound on police brutality, talk about dirty cops, major film. That's real. Don't say that it doesn't happen. That's a lie. It's not so. You don't have to make a point by lying. Tell the truth. What I'm saying again is that we got to be open. We got to understand, first of all, in an era in which we live, we need a police force, but we need one that is pro-people. We need one that doesn't assume because a person is Black, female, or of another race that there's something wrong with them, or they're about to do some harm. And we want our police officers trained to deal with people in a dignified manner and to show them some respect. I've trained my young people, I got 6 grandsons who I love to death, train them to hold up themselves in a respectful kind of way and treat the police officers who are human beings with respect, and do not attack them. If you got IDs, you show me your ID. That is standard procedure. There's nothing wrong or difficult about that. Anytime you stop, you should show if you got a registration and a driver's license. What in the world? If the police officer is not concerned about whether or not you're a licensed driver, then what the devil are they concerned about? Do what you need to do. Show some respect if you want to be respected. And you'll find that half of some of the incidents that occurred, will not exceed that normal. And then again, you got some areas of the country where regardless of what you do or how you do it, they will try to kill you or they will try to beat you into the ground. And these are sick individuals that we have got to deal with. Sick individuals that we've definitely got to deal with. So remember, listen to me. Listen to me. Do it in a correct fashion. Do it in a dignified and intelligent fashion. Make sure you take care of business the way business should be taken care of. And if you want the police to take care of you, you have got to take care of them. Okay, well, we're going to go to got a little background noise here. we're gonna go to our next video. We're gonna go to our next video and discuss this. This is a presentation by the Vice President of the United States, Commodore Harris.
Not knowing that that goodbye would be their last. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. As the President said last night, we must have the courage to stand up to the gun lobby and pass reasonable gun safety laws. We must work together to create an America where everyone feels safe in their community, where children feel safe in their schools. And of course, that responsibility that we collectively have to ensure that all people feel safe in their community is what brings us together today. It is an honor to be joined by the families of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many others. And I've met many of you before, and many times. And many others I'm meeting for the first time. I am moved, as always, by your courage. You have felt so much pain, and you have endured unimaginable grief. You have experienced the anguish of losing someone you love and cherish. And yet, you are here, as you have been throughout the days of your grief, standing selflessly, full of grace and resilience, to speak up, to speak out, often against odds, great odds, to fight for a world where no one has to experience what you have been through. Your loved ones should be with us today. You should not have to mourn. You should never have had to mourn in order for our nation to feel your pain and to understand what is wrong and to agree that something must be done. I know it is a particularly difficult day for the Floyd family. 2 years ago today, a brother, a son, a father was taken from you. We will never forget what happened that day. The eyes of the world, literally, were on what happened that day. And collectively, we remain horrified by what we witnessed. And we are here today in memory of George Floyd and all those we have lost to take action. The law enforcement office of our nation, well, they swear an oath to protect and to serve. And the vast majority do so honorably. Yet we know, too often, when there is a use of biased policing and excessive force, when that occurs, it too often is not met with accountability. Denying equal justice, not just to individuals, but to whole communities, and therefore to our nation as a whole. Trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve is critical to ensuring public safety. And as many of you know, this is an issue I have worked on personally since my first days as an elected district attorney and as California's Attorney General. As a United States Senator, I, together with Senator Cory Book, Congresswoman Karen Bass, introduced legislation to advance much-needed reforms. That legislation would have ensured greater transparency and increased accountability. We later named it the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And it was passed because of the strength of the leadership in the House of Representatives through the House of Representatives. However, last fall, Senate Republicans rejected the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. They walked away from their moral obligation to address what caused millions of Americans to march in the streets. The critical need that a coalition of Americans were demanding, were pleading for in terms of reform and accountability. At the time, President Joe Biden and I, and all of us here, we made clear, and we vowed that we would explore every action available to us at the executive level to advance the cause of justice in our nation. In a moment, our president will sign an executive order that takes dozens of important actions to advance effective, accountable policing, to strengthen trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve, and to help us fight crime and promote public safety. This order will help protect our communities, and it will help keep members of law enforcement safe on the job. These actions are a result of input and collaboration from a broad set of partners, many of whom are here today, civil rights leaders, members of Congress, in particular members of the Congressional Black Caucus, and I see Madam Chair here with us today, leading law enforcement groups, and of course the families of the victims. We know this executive order will not take away your pain, and the pain of all those families who may not be in this room right now. We also know this executive order is no substitute for legislation, nor does it accomplish everything we know must be done. But it is a necessary and long overdue critical step forward. And once again, the President and I call on the United States Senate to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And once again, we vow that we will do everything in our power to protect public safety, to support law enforcement, and to address this issue of racial injustice wherever it exists. And with that, it is now my great honor to introduce a man who, when he ran for president, was clear in his purpose, which was to bring our nation together, who fights every day to make sure all our communities are safe and that the rights of all people are protected. The President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks, please. Thank you all. Vice President Harris, before we begin, let me say a few words about what happened in Uvalde, Texas, elementary school. Since I spoke last night, the confirmed death toll has tragically climbed, including another teacher and three more students. Jill and I will be traveling to Texas in the coming days to meet with the families and let them know we have a sense, just a sense of their pain, and hopefully bring some little comfort to the community in shock, in grief, and in trauma. As a nation, I think we all must be there for them, everyone. And we must ask, when in God's name will we do what needs to be done to, if not completely stop, fundamentally change the amount of the carnage that goes on in this country? To state the obvious, like Corey and a lot of other people here, I'm sick and tired. I'm just sick and tired of what's going on and continues to go on. I spent my career as chairman of the Judiciary Committee and as vice president working for common sense gun reforms, as I said, as a senator and a vice president. While they clearly will not prevent every tragedy, we know certain ones will have significant impact and have no negative impact on the Second Amendment. Second Amendment is not absolute. When it was passed, you couldn't own a cannon. You couldn't own certain kinds of weapons. It's just always been limitations. But guess what? These actions we've taken before, they saved lives, and they can do it again. The idea that an 18-year-old can walk into a store and buy weapons of war designed and marketed to kill is, I think, just wrong. It just violates common sense. Even the manufacturer, the inventor of that weapon, thought that as well. You know, where's the backbone? Where's the courage to stand up to a very powerful lobby? But here's one modest step. The federal agency that measures and ensures that gun laws are enforced and the Second Amendment is abided by, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Explosives, the AFT, has not had a Senate confirmation leader for 7 years because of these disputes. For 7 years, been out without anyone in charge. I nominated a supremely qualified former prosecutor who has broad bipartisan support from law enforcement and the community overall. His hearing was held earlier today, I should say. The Senate should confirm and without delay, without excuse, send the nomination to my desk. It's time for action. We're here today for the same purpose, to come together and say enough, to act. We must. Vice President Harris and members of the cabinet, members of the Congress, civil rights leaders, law enforcement officers and officials, distinguished guests, especially the families missing a piece of their soul, including the family sitting in front of me and the beautiful young girl who told me my daddy's going to change history. And he will, honey. He will. They've lost a piece of their soul 2 years ago as well. You know, I know events remembering your loved ones, even though they're met with great reverence, are really hard. Everything's come back as if it was happening yesterday. But in your own ways, you've each of you, whose family's been victimized, have summoned the courage to find purpose through your pain, to stir justice that's been too long dormant, and to give hope while in need of hope yourself. That's why the executive order I'll be signing today is so important in my view. It's a measure of what we can do together to heal the very soul of this nation, to address profound fear and trauma, exhaustion that particularly Black Americans have experienced for generations, and to channel that private pain and public outrage into a rare mark of progress for years to come. 2 summers ago, in the middle of the pandemic, we saw protests across the nation, the likes of which you hadn't seen since the 1960s. They unified people of every race and generation. Athletes and sports leagues boycotted and postponed games. Companies and workers proclaimed Black Lives Matter. Students staged solidarity walkouts. From Europe to the Middle East to Asia to Australia, people saw their own fight for justice and equality, what we were trying to do. The message is clear. Enough. Just enough. Look, almost a year later, a jury in Minnesota stepped up and they found a police officer guilty of murdering George Floyd. with officers and even a police chief taking the stand to testify against misconduct of their colleagues. I don't know any good cop who likes a bad cop. But for many people, including many families here, such accountability is all too rare. That's why I promised as president I would do everything in my power to enact meaningful police reform that is real and lasting. That's why I called on Congress to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. The Senate's in my desk. So I'm asked why I haven't done this executive order earlier. If I'd done it, I was worried it would undercut the effort to get the law passed. This is a call to action based on a basic truth. Public trust, as any cop will tell you, is the foundation of public safety. If they're not trusted, the population doesn't contribute, doesn't cooperate. Two sides of the same coin, inextricably linked. And the principles of fairness and equal justice are at the core of each of them. For the wheels of justice are propelled by the confidence that people have in their system of justice. Without that confidence, crimes will go unreported. Witness fear to come forward. Cases go unsolved. Victims suffer in isolation while perpetrators remain free. And ironically, police are put in greater danger. Justice goes undelivered. Without public trust, law enforcement can't do its job of serving and protecting all of our communities. But as we've seen all too often, public trust is frayed and broken, and that undermines public safety. For the families here today and across the country who've had to ask why this nation, why so many Black Americans wake up knowing they could lose their life in the course of just living their life today. Simply jogging, shopping, sleeping at home. Whether they made headlines or not, lost souls gone too soon. Members of Congress, including many here today, like Senator Cory Booker and Congressman Karen Bass, alongside members of the Congressional Black Caucus, House and Senate Judiciary Committees, spent countless hours on the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act to find a better answer to that question. I sincerely thank you all for your tireless efforts, but they're not over. The House passed a strong bill. It failed in the Senate, where our Republican colleagues opposed any meaningful reform. So we got to work on this executive order. It was grounded in key elements of the Justice and Policing Act and reflects inputs of a broad coalition represented here today. Families courageously shared their perspectives on what happened to their loved ones and what we could do to make sure it doesn't happen to somebody else. Civil rights groups and their leaders of every generation who've given their heart and soul to this work provided critical insights and perspectives. The executive order also benefits from the valuable inputs of law enforcement, who put their lives in line every single day to serve. Now, let me say, there are those who seek to drive a wedge between law enforcement and the people they serve. Those who peddle the fiction of public trust and public safety are in opposition to one another. We know that's not true, but it occurs. I believe the vast majority of Americans want the same thing: trust, safety, and accountability. The vast majority of law enforcement risk their lives every day to do the right thing. Their families wait for that phone call every time they put on that shield. Just yesterday in Uvalde, brave local officers of the Border Patrol agents intervened to save as many children as they could. Here today, I want to especially thank the International Association of Chiefs of Police, Fraternal Order of Police, as well as the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, the Federal Law Enforcement Association, the Police Executive Research Forum, Major Cities Chiefs Association, and others who stepped up and endorsed what we're talking about today. As divided as this nation can feel, today we're showing the strength of our unity. It matters. This executive order is going to deliver the most significant police reform in decades. It applies directly under law to only 100,000 federal law enforcement officers, all the federal law enforcement officers. And though federal incentives and best practices that are attached to it, we expect the order to have significant impact on state and local law enforcement agencies as well. Here are the key parts. First, the executive order promotes accountability. It creates a new national law enforcement accountability database to track records of misconduct so that an officer can't hide the misconduct. It strengthens the pattern and practice investigations to address systematic misconduct in some departments. It mandates all federal agents wear and activate body cameras while on patrol. Second, the executive order raises standards, bans chokeholds, restricts no-knock warrants, tightens use of force policies to emphasize de-escalation and duty to intervene to stop another officer from using executive force, just as occurred. It didn't occur, but people testified it didn't occur in George Floyd's case. And third, the executive order modernizes policing. It calls for a fresh approach to recruit, train, promote, and retrain law enforcement that's tied to advancing public safety and public trust. Right now, we don't systematically collect data, for instance, on instances of police use of force. This executive order is going to improve that data collection. There's a lot more as well. The bottom line of the executive order includes reforms that have long been talked about or are finally implemented at a federal level. And it comes at a critical time. By building trust, we can strengthen public safety, and we can more effectively fight crime in our communities. And we can do one more thing. We can show what's possible when we work together. Look, I know progress can be slow and frustrating. And there's a concern that the reckoning on race inspired 2 years ago is beginning to fade. But acting today, we're showing that our dear friend, the late John Lewis, congressman, wrote in his final words after his final march for justice in July of 2020, he said, "Democracy is not a state, it is an act. Democracy is not a state, it's an act, an affirmative act." And today we're acting. We're showing that speaking out matters, being engaged matters, and that the work of our time, healing the soul of this nation, is ongoing and unfinished and requires all of us never to give up, always to keep the faith. I close with this. Over 2 years now, for over 2 years, we've gotten to know one another and pray with one another, not figuratively, literally. I promised the Floyd family, among others, George's name is not just going to be a hashtag. Your daddy's name is going to be known for a long time. That as a nation, we're going to ensure his legacy and the legacy of so many others remembered today. It's not about their death, but what we do in their memory that matters. The purpose. In just a few moments, I'm going to deliver on that promise when I sign the executive order. And Kamala and I will continue, along with our friends in Congress, to get meaningful police reform legislation to my desk as best we can, as quickly as we can, beyond what we're doing here, affecting states as well, directly. On this day, we're showing the America we know we're a great nation, because the vast majority of us are good people. And there's nothing beyond our capacity, nothing, when we act together as the United States of America. This is a start, a new start. May God bless you all. May God protect our forces. And now I'm going to go sign that executive order. Thank you. We're about to sign Advancing Executive Accountable Policing and Criminal Justice Practices to Enhance Public Trust and Public Safety. And since I only have one pen, you're all going to get a copy of this. I don't have to do one stroke at a time with each pen. God willing, thank you.
We've been watching President Biden sign a new executive order on policing. This comes 2 years to the day after George Floyd's death in Minneapolis. Joining me now from the White House is CBS News correspondent Christina Ruffini. Christina, welcome. What exactly did the president say in his remarks, and will the president's actions have any sort of impact beyond federal agencies?
Well, not really. I mean, this event today is focused on police reform, on taking action to make sure bad officers are accountable, to make sure they can't hide from their records. But it only applies to federal police officers. The president said it's only about 1,000 officers. They make recommendation for local agencies, but it's only that. It's only a recommendation, and that's because the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act has been stalled out in Congress. It's been unable to get through the Senate. But at the top of the remarks, he focused on what everybody is really thinking and talking about today, and that's what happened in Texas. He said he and Dr. Jill Biden will be going to visit the families down there soon because he wants to offer some form of comfort and grief and be with them and voice his support for the community. But he also said, I'm sick and tired, just sick and tired of what's going on. And as a nation, he said, we must ask when in God's name we'll do what needs to be done to stop the amount of carnage that goes on in this country. He advocated for common sense gun reforms. He said that doesn't conflict with the Second Amendment. He said, look, when the Second Amendment was instituted, you couldn't buy a cannon. That amendment is not absolute. There is a way to do it that will stop. It won't stop all of these incidents. It won't stop all of these massacres, but it could mitigate some and it could lessen them. And that's what he's trying to encourage Congress to come together. But if you look at this event today, you have to think about the fact that this is all they were able to do 2 years after we saw that huge groundswell of support after George Floyd's death, after the Black Lives Matter protest that rocked this city over the summer and rocked the entire country. They've still been unable to get even police reform through Congress. So despite the energetic support of the president, despite his compassionate words on this subject, it seems unlikely that with the Senate split the way it is, especially ahead of a contentious midterm election, they're really going to be able to get anything done on gun reform, even with the heartbreaking, just earth-shattering images we've seen coming out of Texas.
All right, excellent insight, Christina Ruffini at the White House. Thanks, Christina.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick...
Hey, Joe Biden signed his executive order, and quite to the contrary, I believe there's a very good chance that legislation will be passed to deal with police reform. That's my thought. It's long overdue. This whole situation has been happening too long. I mean, since slavery, the institution of slavery, we've been brutalized and treated as if we're less than human by some. And we want to do this. One thing, much of this has to happen on a local level. I understand that in the state of New Jersey, in Camden, which has switched its police force from a local force to a county force, to a local city to a county force, that police officers are getting out of their cars and walking, interacting with people. One other very important thing is that we lift up legislation to make sure that police officers live in the jurisdiction or live in the city in which they're policing, that they are truly neighbors, and that what they should do really is to interact with people, get to know people by name. And so if you know people, and every time you see them, you don't have to ask them for their ID because you know who they are in the first place. I have a first cousin who I love dearly, who lives in Camden, New Jersey, and Camden has one of the highest crime rates in the nation. She's been there for, Lord have mercy, over 40 years and doing quite well, thank you. So sometimes how you interact with people and how you get to know people makes one heck of a difference. Also, what about local precincts? You know what a precinct is? Is an extended office where people can come in and get service. They can come in, and if there's a problem, domestic or otherwise, or someone is mugged, then the police station is already located there. That's another point that we can take a look at. Where do we locate these stations? Okay. What kinds of crimes, or shall we say, a violation of the law, will merit individuals go to prison? Our prisons are, in many cases, overloaded. I can remember when I worked in the Casey administration, I don't remember exactly, but I think 3 or 4 prisons, new prisons were built during that particular era. And having someone to house, some place to house them, don't necessarily end the whole crime situation. It may help somewhat, but it really, really doesn't bring it to the end. Another thing what's happening is that we have, for example, we're from the city of Harrisburg, and we have a Boys and Girls Club. My good friend and my adopted godson, Mark Hawthorne, is the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club. And they have established programs, athletic programs, and other kinds of programs in which the police interact with members of the community and particularly with the kids. A positive interaction. Why wait until there's an issue? Why wait until someone gets knocked down or knocked up or whatever? They are moving forward and adopting some really, really good relationship and listening to the issues and problems and points of views by the police. What is your issue? What is your problem? How do you feel you're being treated? How do you hold up dignity and self-love? How do you do that? And he and the police are working together on that. When I talk about a plan, when we talk about reparations, we're not just talking about a check in your hip pocket for past injustices. We're talking about looking forward and trying to bring to an end current and future injustices. In Harrisburg, we have a beautiful park system. We have a wonderful Civil War museum. We have a fire museum. We have a wonderful, wonderful set of museums that was instituted by our former mayor, Reed. Some people are just angry and don't like Reed, but you gotta give credit where credit is due. And we got things here that can be done with students to educate them and to build relationship to them to the governor. And not only do we need the police to get down into the community and interact, but we need politicians to get down and interact. I've had a little difficulty in getting some representatives on the Richard James show, but I want to invite all politicians, whether you're Republican or Democrat or Green Party or no party. we like you to come on and espouse your belief, espouse what you would consider turns that need to be taken in order to build a future community and also to build a very positive police force. We seem to have some real good leadership from where I sit on the police force. Got a new mayor now, who I know, Wanda Williams, who is a wonderful, wonderful sister, who's been in government for a long, 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 long time. And we need to bring all those folks together. We need to get them out into the community for community meetings. We need them to interact with the police. The police need to see them, for them to visit their precincts, to visit their offices, and know this is the mayor, and that the mayor supports you. The mayor's on your side. The mayor wants to see you lift up a positive manner. There's a movement going on. George Floyd was attacked and murdered, choked to death by some vicious, brutal criminals who call themselves police. Demonstrations went up all over the world. London, Australia, even in a little town of Lebanon, there were hundreds of predominantly white kids and kids of all different ethnic groups marching against police brutality. And understand, you don't want to have a situation where you're always the subject of demonstration. And Camden understand that the police marched along with community people and asking for reform and asking for appropriate funding. We want to bring these people together in love and justice. And it can be done. It really, really come back. Because when it comes down, all people are people. All people want to be treated fairly. When you talk about giving love and respect, or getting love and respect, you gotta give it. We can do that. We can do that in Harrisburg, Lebanon. I heard another incident in which the police raided the home of some of the leaders of Black Lives Matter in the city of Lancaster. I don't know how true that is. I haven't verified it, but I understand these people were only engaged in peaceful demonstration. Why would you raid the home of ordinary citizens simply because they were exercising their First Amendment rights to be able to march and lift up the banner that says Black Lives Matter? Well, I say, yeah, they do matter. And I say that all people matter, that Black Lives Matter also. So, and people have a right to lift up the banner, and people have a right to point out the ills and discrimination that exists within our country. And we've had demonstrations all over the world, as I just stated. Even in Australia, the people are treated as if they're less than human. Same way in New Zealand. I don't care what they say about New Zealand. New Zealand pulls in the water, murdered many of the native people. That happened in New Zealand, happened in Australia. People don't realize there are millions of Black people in the Pacific. And they want justice and equality. They want to be treated fair. But people are locked in the cages. They live in shanty towns. They're not given the privileges. They're not given the things that for basic human needs, indoor toilets. It's just a horrible, horrible situation. So we have to come together and our thought process in the whole issue of how people are treated. All people matter. The indigenous people of this country deserve recognition, deserve love, deserve attention and that kind of thing. We're getting down near the end of our program. We want to let you know, first of all, that we're still in Lebanon, Lemon Valley Market, which is under new ownership, and they're doing some fantastic things down there. And we have new vendors. We have a young lady by the name of Kayla that's really next to my shop, just a wonderful vendor. Then we have new vendors that deal with herbs. We have ice cream. I mean, we just bring in this young man who, the new owner, is doing some positive things, bringing positive people to Lebanon Valley Market. So come down. It's open Thursdays from 8 to 6, Friday from 8 to 6, and Saturdays from 7 to 8. Come down and visit us. This is a good shot. This is my youngest daughter, Maria. Here's some of the things we have. We have statues, oils, all kinds of things. Good time to start thinking about those Christmas presents. So you come to see, and there's the old man, and there's some of the garments that we have. So come down and spend some time with us at Lebanon Valley Market. Maria has a new book out, by the way. There she is, Maria James Chow. She has a new book, and for Count East Beth, it's available at my stand. I have it, but you can go online, Amazon.com, and you can get a copy of Count East Beth. She's brilliant in terms of her writing and in terms of her oratory. Call her if you want her to make a presentation. Okay, there she is. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for spending the time with us, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. So God bless. Let's think about this whole thing of police modification, and there's some good officers out there. So treat them with respect, and hopefully they will treat you the same way. God bless and so long. Take care. Richard James signing off. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you again for tuning in to the Richard James Show. Our African and our African American programs are set up to educate you on what's going on in this world. We thank you for taking out the time to listen. Let us hear from you sometime also. So this is your neighbor and your friend signing off. Until I see you again next week and hear from you again next week. So long. God bless.